Alright everybody, welcome back to my favorite time of the day, the time I get off of work. So I did one of these, I guess last week, where I talked about my crazy adventure stories from me working at Universal, and I just got off of work. Still haven't found a safe way to hold the camera yet, working on it, but I just got off of work and I have another story to tell. Alright, so last week I did day one, first day of working at Universal officially. Not training, not orientation, but just first day of working. If you want to watch that video, I'll link it down below. But today is to talk about my day two, and let's start it off right now. Alright, so day two, I finally got signed off. I came into work, met with my supervisor, Dan, and he asked me a couple questions. I definitely messed up on a couple of them, but I, with a little help, a little nudge, I ended up understanding what he was getting at, and I answered the question correctly, and I got signed off and did a little review of my training and all of that stuff. And then I bumped into position, and I first started at ramp, which is easy. It's just counting to 8 and putting people in rows. And then I got bumped to loader on level 1. So like 15 minutes have passed, and I was loading and I was doing okay, and then boom, there's an 82 in the front row. And for you people who don't know what an 82 is, it's one of our radio codes, and it describes what we call larger guests, people who have abnormal body dimensions. And we typically try and put them in cars at the end of the row, at the end of the hall, which for level 1 is car 1, because they're the most accommodating for those guests. Can you see me? I don't know if you can see me. So yeah, I think he was in car 1. He was. I got them in car 1, and I was loading, and he sat in the front row, which the back row, the seats slant backward, like they slant up, like the front of the seat is further up than the back of the seat, so you kind of sit into it, rather than in the front row they're just flat. And so the back seats are definitely more accommodating for those larger guests to have a seat. And so when I saw he was in the front row, I knew that it was going to be a little bit difficult. And we have an indicator on the back of the car. It's a little light that tells us that the lap bars are low enough to lock. And that indicator did not go on. So I knew that the lap bars weren't low enough. So what I tried to do, since we're not supposed to single anyone out, I tried to just tell everybody just to switch rows. Bring the front to the back, the back to the front. But none of them spoke English, so it took me a little while to get them up. Now, mind you, when you're loading, you only have about 90 seconds to get everything seated, locked, doors down, and to clear. And if you're doing 2 cars, obviously that's cut in half. So fortunately, I was A loader, so I really only had to do 1 car. B loader could, do the other one. We shared a car, so whoever got there first did it. Obviously, I wasn't going to get there first. By the time I got them seated where they needed to be, lap bars down and locked, doors halfway down, the person up in tower called in and said, "Sorry, I pulled your car." Get the guests out and apologize and explain to them that they'll be on the next one. So with the doors halfway down, you have to go to the control panel to open them. So I went to the control panel and I went to go open them, and it's a switch. And one side of the switch is open, one side of the switch is closed, and one light, the open light, is green. No, the open light is red, the closed light is green. I was in panic. It was my first time rerouting anybody, and I just turned it to green, which was close. And unfortunately, that's a big no-no. You're not supposed to close the doors on the guests. So I actually got a safety. The person up in tower yelled at me, told me to open the doors, and then I had to escort the guests out and reroute them and explained to everybody what happened. I got called in to see a supervisor. Things went crazy. It wasn't like that at all. In reality, there was a safety on my side and then a safety on the other side directly after. So there was a bunch of reroutes going on. People everywhere not really knowing what to do. And I wasn't, like, while my safety was happening, another trainee who had just got signed off that day also got a safety on the other side. So there was a lot going on, and I went to go ramp because I asked the lead, because the lead had to come to level. I asked her, you know, like, what should I do? And she's like, just ramp. So I went to go ramp, but then while I was ramping, one girl was yelling at me. She's like, why are you ramping? We all have safeties. And I'm like, because the lead told me to. So I stopped ramping and just waited. And they eventually called me back to the break room, and I had a meeting with my supervisor, and he explained to me, you know, what I did wrong and told me not to do it again. And I got a verbal safety, which is, there's levels of safeties. So verbal, then written, then final warning, suspension, and then termination, something like that. I'm not 100% sure if that's the correct order, but it's something like that. And then, so yeah, that was my safety. For the rest of the day, I was pretty much frozen at greeter and ramp. I wasn't allowed to load for the rest of the day. And, you know, everybody told me, you know, like, it happens. It's not that big of a deal. Just don't let it get to you, you know, wipe it off. Can you even see me? I don't even know if you can see me. You know, they're just like, wipe it off, let it happen, and come back tomorrow confident and not too worried about it. So that's what I did. But while I was, you know, one of the guys suggested, you know, maybe you should get a journal and just write your stuff down, and that's how this developed into what it is. So I'm going to continue telling you guys stories about how my first days, or how my days at Universal go, my crazy adventures. But that's it for today. Day 2, boom, safety, first day signed off on the job, boom, got a violation. But it happens, man, you know, you just gotta you gotta learn from it and let it roll off your shoulders. But that's my story for today, and I'll talk to you guys next time on Driving Diaries. I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna call it. Last time I called it Universal Diaries, but right now I'm driving, so I might just call it Driving Diaries. Alright guys, bye.